Hi, I'm Megan Beeston. I'm doing my lab video for week 3 for the appendicular skeleton. The first thing on our worksheet is to point out the pelvic girdle and the pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle is consisting of the clavicle and the scapula, and the clavicle attaches to the sternum, as well as the girdle allows for the upper limbs to be attached as well. The pelvic girdle consists of the hip bones, the sacrum, and the coccyx. The pelvic girdle allows for the lower limbs to be attached to the skeleton. The clavicle has two ends, the acromial end and the sternal end. The acromial end is closest to the arm. Make sure to the arm. Whereas the sternal extremity is closest to the sternum. The scapula is the next on the list. The coracoid process, if I were to bring him closer, this bone protruding right here. Next to this is the subscapular fossa, which is this area right in here. The glenoid cavity, if I were to spin him around, this part right in here. The spine of the scapula right here. The acromion is this area right here. The supraspinous fossa is the flat surface right here. And then the infraspinous fossa is this area down in here. The sternoclavicle joint, closest to the sternum, and the acromioclavicle joint is furthest away. Next is the arm. So we have the humerus, the head of the humerus, the greater tubercle is this area. If I was looking at an interior view, this area right here. Then we have the lesser tubercle, which would be this area right here. The medial epicondyle, so for the medial, middle down here, as well as the lateral on the outside. Next is the coronoid fossa. For this, if I'm looking at it interiorly, it'd be this little groove in here. And the question is, what goes in here? For that particular fossa, the ulna and the radius bones meet the humerus at the elbow joint. For the next one, the capitulum, if I'm looking at it interiorly, from this bone, I'm looking at the outside right here. And the question is, it articulates with what bone? And it articulates with the ulna and radius. The trochleo is this bone. If I were to look at it from an anterior view, it would be like this bone right here. And it articulates with what bone? And it articulates with the ulna. And the next one is the ocrine fossa. And that's if I would turn Mr. Bones around and bend this little indent and it says what goes in here, and it's the process of the ulna to move freely when the elbow is flexed and extended. Next we have the forearm. We have the ulna, and then we have the radius. So for the ulna, the okernon, if I were to look at this forearm, the okernon would be up here. And then the coronoid process would be kind of like an indent in here. Then the styloid process of the ulna would be in here. Next, the radius. So like we pointed out before, the head of the radius. And then the radiotuberosity is this lip. There's a bump. And then the styloid process would be in here. Next, we have the carpus. It's going to be a little hard to see, but I'm trying my best. So for the carpus, we have, oh, get a little bright. Take him back a little. We have the metacarpals right here, and then the phalanges. And then the scaphoid, it would be the bone closest to the radius. The next is the lunate, and that would be the bone closest to the ulna. Hopefully it's kind of visible. The triquetral is the bone kind of right underneath the thumb. And then the pisiform would be the bone over here. Next, the distal row is the trapezium, and that's the bone somewhat in between the lunate and the pisiform. Next, we have the trapezoid, the bone right under the pointer. The capitate, if we look, it's pretty much the bone in the middle. Next is the hamate, and that would be the bone next, right next to the capitate. It's kind of hard to see with white, so hopefully I pointed. Then it says which bones form the wrist joint with what forearm. So you have the lunate and the scaphoid that form to the radius. And then it says which bone forms a joint with the pollex, which is the thumb, and that's the trapezium. Next we have the pelvic girdle. So the coxal bones, there's 3 of them. So we have the ilium, then the pubis, more so in the middle, And then we have the ischium, which is more so over here. So let's point out the approximate borders. For this one, it's kind of hard to tell, but if I take him back a little. So the ilium would be to like right here, and then the ischium and the pubis is kind of all this area, but the pubis would be like a third, so more so in the middle. Next is the acetabulum. Still working on that. Acetabulum. So if I'm looking at kind of hard to tell, but it would be right in here. Next is the pubic symphysis, and for that it's, make sure it's close enough. It's this area right in here. Then the obturator foramen would be this area here. Iliac crest, so this part. The anterior superior iliac spine, so it's almost like this part right here. And then the iliac fossa, this area in here. The greater sciatic notch, so in here. The ischial spine would be, if I were to, I guess it's a good view, right here, ischial spine. And then the ischial tuberosity, it's almost as if this were detached, and it would be right in here. Next, we're going to talk about the femur. So, the femur, the head of the femur, the greater trochanter would be, if I'm looking at it posteriorly, this part right here. The lesser trochanter, if I was looking at it from a posterior view as well, it would be this area right here. The adductor tubercle is somewhat right there. And then the medial epicondyle, so medial right here. And then the lateral would be right here. Then the medial condyle, so again, if I'm looking at it from a posterior view, it would be right here. And then the lateral right here. Sorry, medial, lateral. So in opposite directions. Patella, right here. Next is the tibia. So we have the tibia and the fibula. Fibula is like false. So the medial and lateral condyles, when we're looking at it from, I guess, an anterior view, it would be right here for medial, and then lateral right here. The tibial tuberosity for we don't have a good view, but this is kind of like a projected bone. The medial malleolus. The medial would be this part right here. And then the proximal and distal tibiofibular joints. The proximal, so up here, make sure you can see, and then the distal, down here. And then the fibula, the head of the fibula, the head of the fibula, and then the lateral malleus is right here. Next, we're gonna go into the tarsus. Sorry, my video is so long. So the talus, we have so the talus, the calcaneus, which is the heel, the cuboid, which is the side of the foot, the navicular, which is this right here, then the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform bones. So we have the medial, intermedial, and then the lateral. And then the metatarsals are right here, the phalanges, and then the hallux, which is the big toe. My video is about 20 minutes long, but there's a lot of information to cover, so I'm hoping this is acceptable. Thank you for watching my video.